Greetings, Wazers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Waze Community Office Hours. I'm your host, Brett, and today we have a action-packed show for you, jammed with so much content. We're going to be first meeting with Maya to go over the brand new issues tracker that's now live in production. And then we're going to be meeting with the Insights and Safety Squad to learn more about their new closures initiative. But first, I have a very quick announcement for you. The annual survey is going to be coming out in the coming weeks. We are finishing up the final touches, and this year we're making it way more convenient for everyone. The beta and the editor surveys are going to be combined, high tech. So once you select what community you're a part of, it'll take you right to those banks of questions. So it's going to be much more slimmed down and much more direct. And we're really excited to hear all of your feedback and thoughts on how we can all make Waze better together. So with that, I'd want to jump right in and pass things over to Maya to talk a little bit about Issues Tracker.
Thank you so much, Brett. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here to share with you more about the Issue Tracker, our recently launched tool in the WME. And I'm here also to represent the Issue Tracker team. For those of you who don't know me, as Brett said, my name is Maya. I manage communities in Latin America, so hola everyone. And I'm also part of the MAP squad. So today I'm going to quickly go over the main functionalities of the Issue Tracker, and I'm also going to share with you what's planned for the future. While we are down memory road, let me know in the chat if you're already using the Issue Tracker, and also our amazing producer, Danit, will now share a link to the Q&A in the chat. Please send us your questions related to the Issue Tracker, and we're going to go over them at the end of this presentation. Okay. So let's go back in time and talk about how the old feed used to work. The old feed consisted of two parts, the map in the right-hand side with all the issues inside the bounding box and the list in the left, which is more of a, you might be interested in these issues. The map and the feed were not related, so results were not synced between them in any way. We really know that fixing issues is essential. Not being able to easily track issues could have resulted in leaving many of them unattended, which results in inaccurate data, unhappy reporters, and less trust in Waze. If drivers keep getting the same route going through a canceled turn and taking a different route than the one that Waze suggested, they might feel there is no added value in using Waze. And thank you for all the comments you're sending us and for our producers for putting them up. So there was really no native way to filter the problems that interest the users. Only by their status, for example, of a certain type of issue, new problems, open or closed. These turn to be very inefficient, not practical, and in order to address these limitations, we introduced the Issue Tracker. So, of course, we understood the need for a better task management tool that will help you understand what should be done next in the WME. The Issue Tracker will provide you with a set of advanced filtering that should assist you in monitoring all incoming map issues. The Issue Tracker also contains map suggestions, also known as Project Koi, so you're going to be able to easily find them and filter them. We have recently added the capability to filter unpaved suggestions as well, and thank you so much, Will, for your comments, so make sure to check it out. This feature is the first step of what we call MDS, that's Map Data Search Project. In the future, we expect to be able to provide more capabilities for you to be able to search and filter different objects in the map. So the Issue Tracker is divided into some common filters and some specific filters. Within the common filters, you can filter areas, map areas, which is the bounding box. You can also filter specific areas like country, city, state, and managed areas. And you also have time filters that include reported and updated times. Within the specific filters of the Issue Tracker, you can filter update request, place update request, map problems, and also map suggestions. Before we move forward to reviewing what's coming up next, so the exciting part, I really want to take a moment to especially thank our WME beta pirates that provide their valuable feedback and help us shape this feature while in beta. Many of the functionalities you currently see, like a refresh button, were brought up during beta, and most of the functionalities we're going to review now were also brought up during the beta testing. So now to the interesting part, the one you still haven't seen. I'm really excited to walk you through what is coming up next in the Issue Tracker, as we have only released the first phase. After these sections, we will have a couple of minutes for the Q&A that our producer sent in the chat. So first, we're going to introduce a star label. The star label is going to replace follow this issue. You will be able to start issues that you wish to follow. You can start them either from their card in the feed or once you open the issue itself. After, you're also going to be able to filter by start issues. For URs, it will work as start and follow like it used to work before. So you will receive email updates if you follow a UR. For PUR, map problems and map suggestions, it will work just as a filter, start and not start. Coming up next, you will also have red and unread support. It's something that we're going to surface as well. The red cards will be grayed out, but you will also be able to mark an issue as unread once it was seen from the envelope icon that will be part of the issue itself. While the feed card status will be automatically updated as a red card, if you click on an issue, you can still override it and mark it as unread to be able to filter it afterwards. So let's say filters. Of course, I also want to give you a sneak peek of how the filters will look like within the issue tracker. This is, of course, subject to changes, but it will be under the general filters, under labels, as you can see, start, unread and start. So something else that many of you mentioned are more filters for URs. So we're going to add a way to filter URs with and without description, and also a My Actions filter that will have more complexity as we will add commenting by me and also resolved by me. Something else that's coming up as well is the saved search. You will be able to apply certain filters and also save your search to use it later on. You will be able to name your search, pin the search you wish to perform by default, and also share the search by copying the search link. You will also have a trash can icon to remove a saved search. Saved search will be located next to the refresh issues button, that's this arrow. So after we introduce all the mentioned features, we will be moving forward to a third phase that will include other enhancements. We're going to add the source of the URs, so you can know if it's coming from the report menu of the app, from the support form that was recently released, or from the live map. And there is even more coming up to the issue tracker, so stay tuned. We're going to add reverse sorting, so you can see all their issues first. And also many of you asked to add driving areas to the areas filter, so that will happen as well. And something that came up really early on during the first phases of testing was to be able to filter within the issue tracker, but see all issues on the map in case there is more than one issue on the same topic that has been left out of the filters. I think Santiago brought this one up. And we will also add the ability to select sum of all areas in the areas filter and also do the same for states. So select one state, select all states, select multiple states. And last but not least, we're also planning to display more information about the issue's location in the feed card itself. So before we move forward to some of the questions that you submitted, 2 reminders from my side. We really encourage you to continue submitting and upvoting community suggestions. I left you a QR code here, and also our producer, Danit, will send it through the chat. And we also have recently released in production in Israel the #1 community suggestion that is to allow more connections within junction boxes coming in the near future for NA and also for O. And I want to remind you that if you'd like to see features first and share your feedback on design, you can join the WME beta community by asking your community coordinator to submit a request using the CAR form. Okay, so let's get some of the questions from our audience regarding the issue tracker.
All right, cool. Dani, why don't you take us away? Here's our first question from Ronald. What is the status to show the language of the reporter? That would already okay be in terms of privacy. It's a huge flaw that we don't know how to address the user.
Yes, Ronald, I agree with you, and also it's a request that we're aware of being able to add more details to URs. This is still not in our roadmap, but we're investigating and considering it.
All right, so next up from Ingo, when will the issue tracker work with driven areas?
Amazing question, because this is planned, so I'm really happy to say that this is going to happen in the near future.
And next up from Anonymous, will there be an option to rename managed areas and or filter by driven areas? So we just sort of talked about that.
Great question, but this is regarding renaming managed areas. At the moment, from the issue tracker, we are not able to rename managed areas, but you can ask your community coordinator to submit a request to rename your area. We know that this is not the best solution, but it's still a workaround for you to be able to give your area a new name.
And another anonymous question, the version in production WME seems like a beta or even alpha version. It doesn't hold sessions even during a session when panning the map. When will this be improved? I've been unable to resolve as many URs and PURs as I used to.
So we do still have some issues regarding settings and saving settings that we're aware of, and we're working to fixing them. And also, please, if you find another issue, feel free to report it in the WME beta forum so we can look into it.
And next up from Stefan, when will there be a way to search for all URs in which someone is involved, and also a way to sort URs from old to new?
So sorting URs from old to new, happy to tell you that this is planned. We're planning to add this type of filtering in the near future. Being able to search for a UR in which specific editor is involved, this is still not planned, but you can also search or filter today by the reporter, the person that reported the issue. But yeah, I understand this request and we'll take note of it. It's a more advanced filter.
And next up from Leighton, could we have the ability to sort URs in the issue tracker based on how long they were reported? Currently, it seems like they only sort by how long ago the most recent comment was.
This is interesting feedback. You're right, they are sorted, but how long ago the most recent comment was. So we'll take note of this feedback. It's not currently planned, but we'll take note and I'll share it with the team.
And from Robin DLC, have you considered the possibility to edit directly in the editor the name of the managed areas?
So yes, we did speak about it within the team. We considered it, but we had other enhancements that we thought were really important to add. So you'll be able to have more advanced filtering. I think there was a question about this before, and I shared with you that you are able at the moment to rename your managed areas. We have a manual process. You can ask your community coordinator, but yes, we did consider this within the team.
And from ABC 1357, for the closed road UR, I've gotten complaints from reporters that they have put in the closure information already when they submitted the closure. Can we get the information from the closure they put in?
For this question, I would need to see the specific issue you're talking about to better understand it. So feel free to send it over.
And from Nate, we need a very specific filter for EVCS PURs.
Yeah, I agree with Nate. This is also coming up.
Yes, it is. And is this our last question?
Mm-hmm.
So from Profa, will there be a way to list only resolved or not identified issues in the future?
I'll have to take note of this one. Not at the moment, but I'll take note and share it with the team.
Amazing. So that's it for our Q&A on Issue Tracker. Maya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Fred, and thank you, everyone.
If you all have questions, you know you can find Maya in the forum. She's always monitoring the WME forum. So if you have any additional questions about Issue Tracker, follow up on the posts there, and you'll get your answers very shortly.
Awesome. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks for having us, or thank you for having me. Thank you for joining us. So now I need to reset this stage a little bit because we have a very packed house this evening. So first, let me play musical chairs, and then I'm going to bring up Anat, Yael, and Matan from the Insights and Safety Squad, who are going to be telling us all about their closure initiative. So come on in. Alrighty. Just make sure everyone's on screen here. Let me move over a little bit. Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anat, and I'm very excited to be here today and to speak about road closures. So let's start with understanding why we need road closures on the map. Road closures is one of the most valuable data points for our users and a powerful tool for you to reflect real-world condition on the map. Displaying accurate road closures and routing users around closed roads is an important component of real-time traffic and maintaining user trust in Waze. Now let's define what makes a road closure in Waze. Waze road closures are segments that are closed for routing. They can be added real-time or with planned or future start date, and they have a set start and end date. They can be associated with a traffic event. Every month, or on average, 260,000 segments are being closed on the Waze map. There are different sources to get road closures for Waze, and Yael will speak about it in the next few slides. So now, when we understand what is a road closure and why it's important, let's discuss about what makes a traffic event. A group of road closures that is associated with an event makes a traffic event. Because of the start and end date of the road closures, they can be planned or they can be unexpected. As most of you know, traffic events are added through the WME, and they have start and end date, and they are happening in a specific geographical area. The cool thing about traffic event is once you create it in the WME, we can communicate this to drivers in different ways. In many cases, this communication is actually what makes the difference between just navigating and giving an extra value to a user. By creating a traffic event, you can voice it to your community, family, and friends. After you submit an event in the WME, it can also be found in waze.com/event. This is an external page which is available to everyone. You can find there the submitted traffic events that are happening now or in the next 14 days. If you click on a specific event, you can see all the associated road closures as the Manchester Marathon that just happened today. Now let's celebrate your contribution. Thank you for adding more than 10,000 traffic events to the map, helping drivers around the world to be aware of road closures ahead. Your contribution got drivers to be aware in advance about potential changes in their route, and by that, being able to plan better their time. I know that you collaborate closely with each other and also in many times with various local authorities, DOTs, municipalities, and some private sector companies. A great example of this collaboration is the Tour de France. Tour de France is the third most famous sporting event in the world. For 3 weeks during July, bikers are crossing multiple states in France, resulting in multiple road closures across the country. Last year's event was a great example of bringing partners and the community together to support drivers that might be impacted by this mega event. Our amazing French community helped us to offer an optimal experience to drivers to bring during the competition and update the map in advance with helpful information. 64 traffic events were added to the map with hundreds of road closures across France. Additionally, helpful POIs were added, such as parking lots. Drivers could find them by typing Tour de France parking and then review a list of parking lots around them by the stage. Tour de France, the partner, generously provided our community volunteers with awesome swags and VIP access to the tour. This year Carnival in Brazil was another great example of how you can make a huge impact on your local community with traffic events. The Carnival involves public celebrations, including parades and street parties that close down large sections of major cities for multiple days before, during, and after the event itself. Across the states of Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Salvador, our fantastic Brazilian community added dozens of traffic events and associated road closures. This had tremendous contribution, and Waze was able to share it with millions impacted drivers. Users received a push notification about upcoming events that the community highlighted. I hope this example show you how much power traffic events and closures can put in your hands, and know how incredibly grateful we are as Waze staff for your incredible, important contribution with closures. And now I'm passing the mic to Yael, our product manager.
Thank you, Annette, for all the great work that you're doing for the past many years around closures and crisis and MTEs and working with the community. Thank you again, all of you, for your amazing contribution, because everything I'm about to talk to depends on that. So I'm Yael. I'm the product manager of the Insights and Safety Squad, Insights and Safety team. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us and hearing what we have planned around closures. So in our squad, in our Insights and Safety team, our goal is to help Wazers make informed decisions on every drive using insights. And you'll see all the great and exciting things that we have planned for you, things around permanent hazard and the new reporting flow from the app. Today, we want to dive deeper into one of our focus areas this year, which is road closures, and definitely one that I'm super, super excited about and been waiting for a long time to be able to say that we're finally focused on that. Okay, so real-time insights are Waze superpower. And when we asked users across different apps, what is the differentiator of Waze and why they use Waze, real-time insights was always brought up as our secret sauce. All users said that Waze gives better real-time info. Closures, basically with meaningful insights, all the powerful things of Waze, for Waze secret sauce. With meaningful insights, we can help make every drive smarter and safer. Now, not all insights are born equal. And we know that closures are just a small fraction of insights, of road insights, but they have one of the most significant impact on drives. We surveyed our users and asked them what they find as the most useful information to know about, the most useful road insights. And closures came up first, with a strong preference to know about them before the drive starts. And this is what we're trying to do for our users. So, what do drivers want? Drivers want to get the best route given the current and expected road conditions. They want to understand Waze routing choices and the ETA. They want to be able to plan ahead based on what we know. And they really, as Anat mentioned, it's all about trust. They have expectations from us. They expect that we will know about closures, and they expect that we will let them know about closures. So what are the pillars that we're working on in regards to road closures? Of course, it's around routing. It all ends with routing. When we know about a closure, we want routing to take it into account and to route you around the closure. And it's also about surfacing those facts, those insights that what we know about road closures to our users. This is what we call insight surfacing. So it's both about explaining our routing choices and showing you what's happening on the map around you, around your route, what's expected to happen, everything that can help you feel more prepared. And data collection is the basis for all of that. So we need to know about road closures, and we need to know about to have accurate data about them. This is not a goal, but a means to an end, so that we can serve the top two needs of routing and insight surfacing. And behind all of that, we're working on our foundation so that we'll be able to create a good service around collection, routing, and data insights. And Matan, who's sitting here next to me, will tell you a lot about that. So what are the sources of road closures and events data? Drivers who report from the app using the UGC flow. Now we know it's a challenging flow, and we'll talk about that as well. But thank you for all of you who are working hard to report closures with the current UGC flow. We also have auto detection, which is essentially detection of suspected closures, which once we detect them, we ask drivers and you to verify whether there is indeed a road closure, and Matan will talk more about that. We have you, the map editors, who contribute most of the road data, most and the most accurate data about road closures for WME. We have partners who give us data about planned and real-time closures through feeds and also through the map editor. And we have the closures team that are also contributing data about road closures, planned in real time, and about events. Now, all those great sources are an input for us to decide whether there's really a road closure. We take it all into account, but as in every cake, we need to know what to put in, but in order to make the cake perfect, we also need to know how much to put in. And not all sources are born equal. And some of the data is more fresh. Some of the data is more accurate. Some of the data is built on more reports. And we need to know when we work over time to perfect that algorithm that takes into account all those great sources and understands, is there a closure here? When does it start? When does it end? To give you the best routing around those closures. Another source that we are planning to put in are closure data from Geo. Now we're working closer with Geo in collaboration to share data bidirectionally. And that will be another source of data that we will take into account as we bake this perfect cake. We know that there are issues with closures data. Geo's data is not perfect. Ours is not perfect. When we put things together, everything becomes better. Okay, so let's start with routing. This is the first piece, the first pillar that we're working on. So basically, we have the most important piece of routing, which is real-time routing. A user is driving right now. And we have routing that we do for planned drive, so routing that looks into the future. Similarly, we have real-time closures that we know that are happening, that are active live right now, and we have planned closures. So today, we know that closures can have significant impact on routes and on ETA. And we know that Waze, unfortunately, currently, even though we know about planned closures in advance, there's a huge gap in our routing logic that we're not taking into account yet, planned closures. We know about it all, and yet when we start navigation, we may send users through a route that goes through a road that will be closed, that is planned to be closed. So this is something that I'm happy to say that we're working on fiercely right now and will be available later this year. We will be able to provide and allow users to trust us to provide better routes that will take into account the planned closures. Now, there is a small caveat here. Planned closures are not always accurate. There are more reliable and less reliable sources of planned closures, but even the most reliable ones don't always know exactly what's going to happen in real world. So again, here we will need to take into account different pieces of information and create a confidence score. And based on that, understand what's the likelihood of a closures to happen. What's the likelihood of a drive to be impacted by a planned closure? And we would love to hear your feedback once this is available. Okay, now let's talk about closures surfacing. So closures insights are important for us to surface to you, to users, in all stages of the drive. So before you start the drive, long before you started it, when you're just starting to think about the drive, and when you're starting the drive itself, and during the drive. And again, we would like to be able to give users contextual information when they need it. So the first way that we surface closures information is with what we call the MTE push, or traffic events notifications. And these are sent ahead of time. And our goal here, and what we're working on optimizing right now, is really reaching with those notifications any user who is thinking, who's planning, considering having a drive that might be impacted by those big events. And that will tell you later what events get a push and what events don't get a push today. And also there, we're planning to improve that and send pushes on a bigger variety of of traffic events. The next thing that the next place, a point in the user journey that we're surfacing road closure data are as the users start their drive. So we have, or we will be surfacing. So we have trip overview that shows you all the information and help you get prepared for your drive. Right now, we don't surface any information related to closures in trip overview. One thing that we need to do is add that information to trip overview, but also our routing needs to get smarter in explaining trip overview client when a route is impacted by closure. What does it mean? When do users need to know about? What users care to know about? So one thing is, for example, their preferred route or the route that they expect to get is not available today. Why is it not here? Why is it not on the list? When users don't know that, they may think that something in Waze routing is wrong, and not necessarily there is an event that is avoiding them from getting the route. Similarly, maybe preferred route or the expected route is available today, but is not recommended. Why is that? We would like to be able to explain that. Also, when an ETA is much higher than expected, than usual, we would like to be able to explain that this is due to closures. And other cases like your destination is not reachable, there's a big event around your destination, you can't even get there, that's why your route stops before the destination. Those are all things that we would like to be able to surface to users before they start their drive. And again, for that, our routing needs to be smarter, not only to route around closures, but to be able to explain and to understand that it's happening due to closures. Now, when it comes to traffic events, today we use them only for the push notifications, but we would like to be able to use traffic events also for surfacing data about closures. It is always more helpful to users to know why there are road closures or how significant the road closures is, and we can communicate that to users by talking about those events. The screenshot that you see on the right is our initial stage of experimenting with surfacing this data to users as they start their drive. So instead of surfacing that in trip overview, we're showing a pop-up. We're experimenting right now with showing a pop-up to users as they're starting a drive that is impacted by road closures. And lastly, not supported yet, but something that the areas that we're exploring to support and to work on later this year and next year are surfacing of closures data during the drive. So one thing is when there's a reroute during the drive that is due to a closure that just started, we would like to explain to users we're rerouting you due to that closures, and wherever we can also due to the closures that result from a certain event. And also the way that we surface or show closures on the map, there are a lot to improve there. We can tell you more, we can make it more clear, and we're working on that. So eventually, what is the impact that we wish to have with all those great initiatives on routes and users? First of all, we would like to eliminate routes that get inaccurate ETA. Once we know about the closures, once we take them into account in routing, the routes and the ETAs will get more accurate. And similarly, we will get less reroutes that are initiated by our routing algorithm and by users who drive, who either listen or don't listen to Waze, but then encounter a closure and reroute. So those are things that we would like to impact. But above all, it's giving our users the best service and allowing them to trust Waze and to trust that Waze is sending them around those closures and explaining why. So just before I wrap up my section, I wanted to say that the path of our work here starts from the optimal user experience. We want to nail this. We want to understand this. We want to build the optimal user experience around closures. But it doesn't end there. Actually, after we build the foundations, after we understand what users need, we will continue and go over to improving the collection and give you guys and our drivers and our partners the right tools to collect the best data around closures, because eventually Our goal is to have full coverage of road closure data. We want to know about all closures that impact our drivers. We want to know exactly when they start. We want to know when they end. And this is the next step that we're already working on in our journey. And just a side note before we move over to Matan, lane closures. Let's not confuse lane closures with road closures. Lane closures are not less important. And we're happy to announce that with the new reporting menu, with the new reporting flow that we will be supporting later this year, we will also be giving you and drivers the option to report road closures. These will basically behave like any other hazard, and we'll get alerts, etc. And we hope that this will be helpful as another type of meaningful insight that we're sharing with our users. Now, we'll be happy to answer all of your questions at the end. I'm handing it over to Matan. So basically, Matan is the eng lead of our closures team, and the brain behind all the great things that we're working on right now and planning to work on. And he will tell you about the many challenges and things that we're working on.
So first of all, thank you, Yael, for a great overview. So hey everyone, I'm really glad to be here. As Yael already said, my name is Matan, and I'm the engineering lead of the Traffic Insight team at Waze. Now, thanks to Yael, great overview, you just heard a lot about our closure team goals and ongoing efforts. What I want to really strengthen first is what Yael said about how important this domain is to us. We see it as a critical path and as a Waze superpower. I think the creation of my team, which is rather new, 2 to 3 months, is a proof how Waze also agree with us and want us to focus better on this domain. Now, I really want to stress that while tackling all those efforts you just heard about, we are really also investing in our infrastructure work. We are trying to improve what we already have today. We are going over the many components involved in the closure flow at Waze and modernize them to better answer our needs. I think it's worth mentioning that our data team is putting up a lot of effort into making the domain measurable and trackable. You already heard from Yael about some new core metrics, the reroutes, the bad ETA, and accuracy about closures. And the data team is really building a unique data infrastructure just for closures and traffic events, so we can have the most updated, reliable data at all times. Okay, so what did I want to talk to you about and give you much more information is about the closure lifecycle at Waze. Now, what is actually the journey of a closure once it gets created? Yeah, from the moment you guys input it to the system or user report it. I will address the difference in a second. Up until the moment it actually been taken into consideration in routing or being presented during the drive. Now, we already stated the different sources, possible sources to learn about the existence of a closure. The one which is most popular is through you guys, through WME, or through partner feeds. But we also have the option to report through the mobile client, the UGC flow. I am not going to focus about the reporting flow itself through WME or otherwise. The journey I'm going to describe starts from the moment we, the server, is aware of the closure up to the moment we surface it. I do think it is important to address the difference between the reporting sources, because for UGC flow, the one that reports through the mobile app, we have a special condition. Usually, a single user reporting a closure through the app is not enough for us to feel that this is certain enough to make it a public closure and affect routing for everyone. We would usually like several reports depending on the type of road type and so on. We do have special conditions for special users, for example, editors level 5 or 6 or above, that a single report from them does make a closure public instantly. We think that experimenting with those conditions, we can make public closure reporting become much more easy and accurate, and we plan to do it in the coming months, once we have set our data foundations ready for those experiments. Also, as Yael already said before, we are aware of how tough the UGC current flow is and possible improvements to it, but we want first to finalize our surfing user experience, since it will impact later how we design the better reporting flow. Now, as Yael already mentioned, if a closure is planned, but its start time hasn't arrived yet, meaning it really is in the future, we don't do anything with it in real-time routing, meaning real-time routing only works with real-time closures. This is something we want to change, and as I already said, it's work in progress. But for now, let's focus on closure inside our system that are becoming real-time, meaning their start time is approaching. Now, they could have been reported a day ago, a week ago, or right now, but their start time is right now. We take those closures and we validate them against Waze real-time traffic information that we have on those specific closed segments. The traffic information will determine if the closure will become active and affect routing, or it will be considered non-active closure, meaning do not block routing users through those segments just yet. This non-active state is what we like to call a suspended closure, just telling you the term. Now, our current logic to decide if a segment is really closed or not is a very simple approach that tests the number of drivers on that segment. We are working on having a better data foundation so that we can start experimenting with this logic and see if we can improve it. This activeness status of a real-time closure is something that is being checked periodically. That is in order to keep the most updated state about the closure. We are trying to catch all possible cases for a real closure on the road. Closures can start late, or finish early, or for some reason stopped in the middle and resume. This activeness framework helps us make sure we are up to date. Now, assuming the closure is indeed active, it will be reflected in the Waze mobile app. You probably all know it as the no entry pin together with the red and white stripes on the segment. And also, of course, affect routing. Users will not be routed through it. Now, when the closure end time is reached, the closure will be stopped and disappear, both from routing and the map. For closures that are reported through the app, the UGC, the end time is not always known. It does not always being reported. So it is treated just like any other alert being reported from the UGC flow, meaning some constant time, usually 30 minutes or so. But it is an end time that can be extended with interaction with the alert itself. You know, thumbs up, adding a comment, the regular interaction with alerts. But as we already also said, we have this traffic activeness mechanism in place, so that also makes sure that even if the time is not ended yet, the closure itself would still not be taken into consideration in routing if we don't think it's needed. Now, all those closure, now this planned, active, non-active, suspended, or ended are all real-time closure statuses that are very interesting for us to know about each closure, but we also know that are very interesting to you to know about. You requested to see it in WME many times. Now, this feature is happening. The last piece of it is on my team. We need to make the closure status be much more reliable, and we are working on it. We plan to deliver it by most at summertime. Now, lastly, the last thing I want to talk about, but this is important, we want to invest in auto-detecting of closures. We think it will increase significantly our closure coverage at Waze, which will, of course, result in a better experience for everyone. Now, when talking about auto-detection, we can discuss two approaches. One is taking our system data and finding closures we think that are happening right now on the road with a high certainty threshold, and make them immediately a public closure for routing to not route through immediately. The second approach is finding a suspected closure and ask our users about it, relying on their reporting and that might come from this prompt questioning. Now, until now, we had a framework that tried the latter. You can see this pop up on the screen. Some of you probably already know it, which identifies such cases. The logic to have a suspected closure is based mainly on traffic data and adjacent traffic jams around the suspected segment that is closed. And the pop-up, with the pop-up, we are trying to prompt the user to report a closure through the regular UGC flow. Now, since the current closure reporting flow can be improved and it's not that easy to use, we decided for now to close this pop-up framework and focus more on improving the detection logic itself, but we are definitely planning to revive this approach in the future. We are now actively working, and it is a top priority for us, on finalizing our strategy regarding how to tackle this closure auto detection domain. I can share with you some direction we have. So obviously improving the current logic that relies on traffic jams if we want, and adding some certainty threshold around it to feel when we feel that this is probably 100% error closure. Another approach is switching to other methods, such as examining repeating reroutes. If a segment that Waze keep routing you to is being constantly reroute around it for a lot of users, probably closed. This idea, by the way, we know was suggested by the community itself. We totally agree with you. It's a direction worth exploring soon. Lastly, we also want to learn from Geo because they already tackled the auto detection domain. And when I say learn, I mean both ways, the good stuff they have and also their misses. So really stay tuned for future updates regarding auto detection.
I've got one from the chat I want to put up real quick. If a closure is active, is it possible to cancel the closure automatically then when traffic starts passing through it?
You mean cancel by a user or the Waze system?
No, the Waze system would end the closure once traffic resumes on the segment.
So it depends. We need to think about it, but usually if we see traffic and we suspend that closure, we're not necessarily assuming that it's really not there or ended, or we want to wait through the data we got to the real end time to see maybe it will come back to life. But we definitely have much more to explore and think about in this domain. And feedback from you guys will be much appreciated. Okay, so back to Anat to talk about a little bit more about traffic events before we finish.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Matan, and thank you, El. And thank you for staying with us. So in the next few minutes, I will speak about the efforts that we're doing around traffic events. So as most of you know, traffic events are categorized in the WME with this list of the categories for traffic events. We have sporting events, festivals, construction, crisis, etc. Now I have a question for you. Guess what do you think is the most common event category? You can write in the chat. What do you think is the most common category for traffic events that is being added to the map? Now let me bring the list back so you have the list here. Sport events. Because you like sports, so this is what you think.
Just construction.
Oh, construction. Okay. Sport crisis. Good. Roadblocks. Okay. So 65% of traffic events, and I'm speaking only for 2022, that were added to the map were construction events. So this is the most common traffic event that is added to the map. However, this is not the most common that we send push notifications to. So only a small amount of construction events we actually send push notifications, but most of push notifications are actually sent, as you mentioned, for sporting events, for festivals, or for other category, which is also broken down in some ways into sporting events or more local events. What we are doing right now and will continue to do in the next few months is break it down better for your use and also for the user's use, to bring it more real life and to segment it in a better way. If you have any suggestions of how we can break it down these categories, please let us know. In the last slide, I will let you know how you can submit suggestions or feedback. Additional efforts are around educational resources, explaining our internal processes to you, sharing best practices and FAQs. We are working to update the Wikipedia and the traffic events white paper, which I assume that some of you are familiar with. And also, besides educational resources that we want to give to you, we also want to educate Waze partners, which I know that that some of you are collaborating close with. So also they know how traffic event works and for which events we send push notifications, so they can use it in a better way and communicate to users. One of the most common questions in traffic events are actually about push notifications. The overall process of how we decide if we send a push notification or not is once you submit or a partner submits a traffic event to the WME, we have the Waze Closures team that reviews the details of the traffic events. And if it meets push notification criteria, a push notification will be scheduled. There are efforts also around this about refining this process. We're working to update the audience that will receive the push notifications for these traffic events to make it more relevant and reliable. And also, we want to, as I had mentioned before, we want to better understand which events we want to communicate to users. With great power comes great responsibility. This push notification is a tool that we are very fortunate and we feel proud that we can give you to voice the traffic events to your local community, family, friends, and citizens around your area. What also we're doing is we're refining the naming guidelines. So the first one is, as some of you know, maybe more in the LATAM countries, that for special characters, we usually don't send push notifications. We change the traffic event's name. So we're working to change that and make traffic events more localized, so it will be more relevant to you. And we're also refining the numbers that can be added to the traffic event and also communicate to users. So stay tuned about that. And now this is one of the most important slides. We really want to get your feedback, your suggestions on the current situation of what you're happy with and what not, and any ideas that you would like us to implement. So for any questions, suggestions, requests, please send them over to wazeclosures@google.com. All of your feedback will be recorded and we will review it and we will communicate it back to you. This was reviewed and this is what we can or cannot do. And if you can do it, we will explain you how and when you will have it live. So please reach out to us. We're eager to know what you think and what kind of ideas you have in mind. And I want to thank you all. Thank you, Matan, and thank you, El, and thank you, the community, for your incredibly important contribution with closures. We're working to give you better tools and experience to you to communicate traffic events to the community and to users around the world. I hope you love the presentation about closures and Q&A.
All right, let's do it. So, due to our limited seating, I am over here with Danit in the producer booth. That's all I'm going to make you be on camera. I hope everyone can hear me because I'm just trying to scream over the table so that my mic can pick us up on that side. So let me know if you can't. Now, before we get to the Q&A you submitted, I saw a few questions in chat that I really wanted to go over. One that got a couple of +1s. So first, here we go. From DeWickGT, I butchered that, I'm really sorry. Google Maps takes the closures from Waze, but why doesn't Waze take the closures from Google Maps?
So as I mentioned at some point, we are working much more closely with the Geo team right now in order to create better collaboration around closures so that the exchange of closures data will be bidirectional. So we will get data from them. They will get data from us. We will take it into account along with all the other sources that we use in order to create a more reliable and higher coverage of our closures data set around live closures to begin with, and later on around planned closures. Eventually, we can even consider having a really shared repository and sharing additional things around the logic of processing closures data. So definitely, we're going to do.
Awesome, thanks, Al. So there were a few others in the chat I just want to go to really quickly. So here we go. So you mentioned lane closures earlier. Are they also going to be able to close a specific lane, like in a real-time closure?
So not at the moment. Right now, reporting, the new reporting menu will include reporting of lane closure. That will be, in general, you'll be able to say right, left, middle, but not specific lane. We also don't have lanes mapped for all the roads in all areas of the roads, for all of the segments. It will just be around where it is. And also when we surface that to users, it will be around not exactly what lane, but what area of the road is closed. This is also the data that we get from partners right now through feeds. And as we evolve reporting through the app, through WME, and as we evolve our understanding of lane closures, we will also consider that.
Awesome. And then another question from Craig. Some closures are restricted for the general public, but allow access for a specific event. If they're using Waze, how will that affect the closure being validated?
That is a really good question. And that sounds like a case that we need to consider when we improve our suspension logics and try to solve when we get to it.
I can say that one of the challenges that we have right now with understanding whether a road is open or closed based on real-time traffic is, for example, what happens if police or ambulance or other support vehicles are driving on that road, or what happens if a certain road in case of crisis is actually evacuation road. We really need to be able to be smarter around what does it mean that we see traffic on a closed road.
Alrighty, so now let's jump into the questions that were submitted through the deck. Now, I'm going to ask this even though I know this isn't this squad's purview, because this is a WME question, but actually it was the highest upvoted, and then it was also re-asked at least 3 different times. So is there any update on the ability for editors to set real-time closures on turns and not just on segments? And feel free to say you don't know, and this is a question for Gil and Talia, and I'll shoot it over to them to answer in the forum.
This is a question for you.
All right, it was so popular, I really felt we needed to answer it. Okay, so real-time closures. I'm just trying to go through these so we can pull relevant ones, because a lot of these have to do more with mapping and less with the insights and data that we're talking about. So I wonder if this is what I'd asked earlier. Waze has real-time insights into traffic. If Waze can detect traffic and route around it, it should be able to detect that no one is following the guidance to turn onto a segment. Waze should realize that that's a closure and then close the segment. Then it could reopen it when Waze detects Wazers there.
We agree. And this is definitely one of the directions we are exploring right now. High chances we will go with that in the end, and that we need to consider all kind of alternatives and how feasible everything is. But we definitely agree. This is a great suggestion.
Awesome. So I'm just trying to go down here because I don't want to put up any of these WME questions that came in from the earlier part, because those had the higher votes. Here's an interesting one from Leo. When will planned closures in the near future be taken into account? If I drive now and the closure will happen in 1 hour and it will take me an hour to drive there, I still get the route. But when I arrive there, the road is closed. And we'll get a reroute from that point when the road is closed.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is something we're actively working on right now, working and making great progress towards that. It's super important. It's a gap in Waze routing today. We know about all those planned closures. We want to use them. We want to take them into account. The challenging part here is the fact that we need to understand or to assess how accurate plant closure data is. Basically, there are two approaches, and it depends on the user, it depends on the circumstances. We want to get it right as much as we can, but we can either go like the safe way and never send you, never route you through a road that might be closed when you get there, or we can go the more risky way. But we're working on creating the finding the optimal solution that will serve that. Agree, great question, super important for us to do that.
All right, so we are almost out of time. So this is going to be our last question, and it's another one about Geo and our new partnership. So scheduled road closures on Waze will show on Google Maps. Good, but if we remove the scheduled closure before the original end time, the removal does not propagate to Google Maps. This means that the closure remains on Google Maps until that originally scheduled end time, which is bad. Are we going to be able to improve the communication between our org and the rest of Geo?
So first of all, good to know.
It's more of a question for the partners.
I see.
Squad.
All right, if you'll just
definitely we'll pass it over to the path that is similar to Waze feeds that passes this information over to Geo, and we'll take it into account. Perhaps they're already taking care of that, and we will update. We will follow up with an update.
Amazing. All right, so this is our time for today. I want to really thank all of our special guests from Maya and Anat and Yael and Matan. Thank you all for joining us so much. It was really a wonderful episode. If you have any last words you want to leave the community with, now is the
first of all,
time.
thank you everybody, Maya, Danit, Brett, Matan, Anat. I wanted to ask, first of all, any feedback that you can give us on all the things that we're about to share with you, all the new features that we're about to share with you this year and next year. That will be super helpful as usual. And again, once we build the foundations and understand the best user experience, we will make sure that the tools for you to map the data for you and the partners and the users through the app are the best that we can. Another request that I had is anything that you can share with us about local needs around closures, something that is unique for your communities, will be super helpful for us in order to serve your communities as well. So please do.
All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us. We had so many questions submitted tonight, so we will follow up on the forum. I'll make sure that our guests here get all the questions that you asked, and we'll send a digest recap probably sometime later this week. Come meet us again next month. We don't have a topic yet, but we'll announce it in the next week or two, right, Danit? And from there, I just want to thank you all for all that you do, all the contributions you make to your communities through Waze. We deeply, deeply appreciate. And I deeply appreciate your time for joining us on your Sunday to give us a little nice hour-long slice to connect with you. So thanks, everyone, and see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.